obtained using each method.
In addition to the previously discussed Condorcet criterion, there are 5 other fairness principles. Firstly, we have the majority criterion. Let's say na sa isang election, majority ng voters ay pumili kay candidate X bilang kanilang first choice. This means that si candidate X ay ang dapat na manalo. Secondly, we have the monotonicity criterion. Let's say na sa unang election, si candidate X ang panalo. Sa re-election, lahat ng voters na pumalit ng kanilang boto ay pabor lamang kay candidate X. This means that si candidate X pa rin ang panalo. Thirdly, we have the independence of irrelevant alternatives criterion. Let's say na si candidate X ang nanalo sa election. Even if one or more candidates are removed from the election at nag-recount sila ng votes, si candidate X pa rin ang considered na panalo. Fourthly, we have unanimity. In this case, should every voter prefer a certain candidate, meaning na may unanimous na preference ang voters, that specific candidate should be the winner. And lastly, we have non-dictatorship. In this case, the outcome of an election should not be simply influenced by a single individual, habang ini-ignore lamang yung preferences ng ibang voters. As mentioned, meron tayong 4 voting methods. In relation to fairness principles, these 4 voting methods cause different election outcomes that may violate one or more fairness principles. To illustrate, the following example is about the election of an organization's chairperson. There are 15 org members and 4 candidates. By the board account method, candidate B wins with 48 points. However, by the majority criterion, candidate A wins with votes from 8 out of 15 org members. In this case, the outcome of the board account method violates the majority criterion, since based dun sa majority criterion, 8 org members chose candidate A as their first choice. From the discussions and examples stated, there are 2 key takeaways. Firstly, different voting methods produce different outcomes or winners of an election. Secondly, voting methods cause violations of particular fairness principles. Now, what does this say about the nature of voting methods? Is there even a best voting method? Well, experts declare that there is no ideal voting method, and the mathematical basis for this claim lies in Kenneth Arrow's impossibility theorem. Kenneth Arrow, in his PhD dissertation entitled Social Choice and Individual Values, examined the following ideas as applied to ranked voting systems. First, there is no voting system that would obey, in all possible voting instances, the following fairness principles: monotonicity, independence of irrelevant alternatives, unanimity, and non-dictatorship. This claim is further supported by mathematical proof as integrated by order theory. Second, there is no consistent method for a democratic society to make a choice that is always fair. The choice is made from among 3 or more alternatives, and fair in this context is used to describe an instance where a fairness principle is not violated. But despite the inability of voting methods to satisfy fairness principles, there are alternative methods that voting experts consider strong. An example is the approval method. In this method, voters are not asked to rank candidates. Rather, they are required to give their approval to as many or as few candidates from a given set of candidates. This method is applicable to smaller voting populations like legislatures or organizations. According to advocates of the approval method, it has the following advantages. It is easy to understand, simple to implement. Voters are given flexible options, which increases in voter turnout. Helps elect strongest candidates. It is